Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. And I know that I took a bit of a break away from creating videos, but I hope to be creating more now, and I'm ready to come back and do some more content, particularly around our nervous system. I know I always talk about it, but it is the main way that we actually make the change in our reality, because when we start to change our mindset, we want to have a good nervous system that is not going to relate back to triggers that we experienced in the past. Because a lot of the triggers that we have experienced in our life are held on within our nervous system, and so that is why things like meditation, healing work can even does a good job as well from releasing these tensions and emotional traumas that are held within our body. We also have breath work or yoga or anything that we do to kind of give ourselves a few minutes off the day to just kind of be with ourselves and to sit in silence, or to just kind of connect in with ourselves. It could be prayer, it could be anything. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about when we are categorized. So everyone is coming from their own perception, and so everyone is always going to have a different perception of you. In a group of people that know you, they may all have the one perception because they know who you are, they have been around you in your behaviors, and they love you for whatever kind of behaviors that you have, in obviously positive ones, but even on days when we are not feeling good and things like that, you're not judged or anything like that. When you're around people you know, and you have this kind of categorization, so your friendships, in your family as well, if you're a mother or a father or sister or brother or cousins, all these different type of categorizations that we get. So when it comes to changing a dynamic that we may have had, so let's say for instance we are evolving into this kind of stronger persona within ourselves, and maybe in the past we have been a people pleaser. And when we are putting ourselves into new situations, so we're putting ourselves into an environment that maybe we haven't done before, maybe we are experiencing new friendships for the first time, maybe we are going to different social outings, maybe we're changing jobs, maybe we are building a career in self-employment, or whatever it is that we are doing, we're changing something that we may not have experienced before. So when we go about this and we are a little bit, obviously we can be nervous and all of the things that come to us, because we relate a lot of our experiences from the past, because obviously it's what the brain knows. But when we know that we can change that from the way that we talk to ourselves every day, we begin to talk in this kind of positive way, in this optimistic way. So when we put ourselves into these situations and we're talking to ourselves in these ways that are positive, and maybe something happens, maybe within the situation that you're in, the environment that you're in, which is kind of reflecting back to you the old story. So maybe you meet somebody and the same thing is happening in a relationship, or maybe you change your careers and people are kind of seeing you in a way that maybe your last career people saw you, and you're not kind of liking that you're actually falling back into that kind of persona. So what to do is to recognize it. First of all, is the awareness of it. So if somebody says something to you that triggers you in a moment, the reason why it triggers you is because it's connecting your brain to the past experience that you had that you weren't really particularly happy about, and that's why it kind of triggers you a bit. Or it could be a preconceived stereotypical notion that people can have on different kind of areas in society, as we all know, and sometimes we may not want to be classed or categorized in this way. And so I wanted to bring up this topic of not allowing others to categorize you, because everybody has a different perception of who you are, because they're only seeing from the lens of their own minds, and they have everything going on in their mind and what they've learned through their life and how they experience things. And a lot of the time when we're changing, we find it really easy to fall back into old ways of being, because when we show up in an environment, it's automatic. It's like a subconscious thing that allows us to go back into these behaviors, and it allows us to start thinking in those ways. And when it comes to the subconscious, as we know, we're using affirmations and everything to kind of reprogram it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to end up being like this perfect brain, that you're never going to have these spirals, or you're never going to have these days where it actually feels overwhelming and that you're not changing. But the moment that you actually decide to change is the moment that you actually change. And all of the other days, when they can seem really kind of tough or overwhelming, they're just part of you even overcoming them more and allowing your brain to understand that you don't get triggered by this concept anymore. So when you're in an environment and someone categorizes you back into, oh, you're just this type of person, or you're that type of person, or whatever it is that they say, in that moment, and you know that it's maybe related to your past, you say to yourself that is, it's just a perception that they have. I don't need to get triggered by that. I'm not falling backwards. The only way that I fall backwards is if I believe what it is that they are saying. So that is how we came to all our beliefs throughout our life. It was because we believed what was being told to us from others. And I'm not saying that, not everything is not true, because obviously there are, great qualities and things like that people might tell you about. And maybe there are things that you didn't believe because of your subconscious, but the more that you work on yourself, you start to see them things yourself, and they become more real to you and more true. So on this journey, if you are someone who finds that you can, that people can categorize you into a certain way, but you don't really like that certain way, well, then that is the time when you say, no, I'm changed from this moment. And doesn't mean that it's not going to bother you or trigger you. These things can happen anyway, but it's what you do with that trigger and that mindset of what you just heard from another person. And a lot of the time, if our nervous system is not regulated, we can start defending ourselves, which means that we will start to say things that we maybe didn't want, wouldn't have said if we were regulated, or because we were triggered, or our body will show up in a way that is not able to take the maybe criticism, and we may become emotional, or it just could show up in a way that is not the way that we would want to respond. So this is why the nervous system regulation is very, very important, because our nervous system, obviously, it's from birth. And when we are building everything up in our life, it's built on our nervous system and how it actually holds on to what we feel and what we know. And when we experience something that is related to something we didn't want to experience in the past, it's going to feel triggering in our body. And because it feels triggering in our body, it's that, fight or flight kind of experience where your body will, rather than actually doing something that you would be proud of, it'll show up in a way that will be emotional, which means it's either going to come out in sadness or anger or frustration, and the words that will come out with that, because that's the way the brain will be directed to, will be words that you wouldn't be happy about if you take a step back and realize that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I was just feeling maybe embarrassed, or maybe I was feeling a bit angry because they categorized me in that way and I didn't want to be categorized. And so then when you take a look at the bigger picture, you realize if I actually had taken the time to regulate my nervous system, even if they said something to me and I wasn't doing affirmations, I still would have handled it in a more kind of a calm and balanced way, because my nervous system wouldn't have reacted in a way that would pop into defense in that moment, if that makes sense. I don't know what anyone thinks about this. If you have any questions, you can comment down below. Of course, you can email me at any time at manifestwithamanda@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and I hope to be creating more content now as well too. Of course, if you have any requests, you can email me or comment down below as well. And until then, I will chat to you soon, hopefully sooner this week than later, and have a good evening, and I will chat to you soon.